you.
Wild thing. Wild thing. Wild thing.
You make my heart sing. You make everything groovy.
Wild thing.
Wild thing, I think you move me. But I wanna know for sure. Come on, hold me tight. You move me. Wild thing, you're such a wild thing. Come on, wild thing. You're such a wild thing. Wild thing.
Under 17 not admitted without parents or guardian. Under 17 not admitted without parents or guardian. Under 17 not admitted without parents or guardian.
understand.
Nothing's wrong. You're watching the Drive-In Asylum late movie. Fans of fantastic films, welcome. And there's me, and then there's Sam Panico from BNS About Movies. But what's super cool is Justin Burning, author, composer, and all-around super cool dude. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, guys. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Apologies in advance for the movie I chose to subject you all to tonight.
I was just looking up my review, and I summed it up as you could gather all of Hollywood, give them all the money, and they would never make a movie this great or weird or with so much dick.
Yeah, that I read your review and I totally agree with it. And I also agree with that Letterboxd review where someone said this is like, I don't know, the best movie that could never be made by adults or something like that. That was,
no adults could make this movie.
Yeah.
It's filled with like,
it wasn't made by adults either. They're made by a
No.
bunch of like 19-year-olds. So
yeah, it's a movie. I think it's a movie made by guys afraid to leave their parents' house and see what's out there in the world.
I'm very afraid they might be gay.
Yeah, very afraid. There's a there's a lot. There's not subtext to this movie. It's just text. I think a lot of times.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I'm not sure I've seen another movie that has a more dense phallic symbol quotient than this one does. Pretty much everything is a dick or a knife and a dick.
Yeah.
Aren't all movies like that, though?
I mean, sure.
Halloween.
Not all of them are
definitely.
SOV movies, though, but yeah.
Yeah. This is like what I really like about this movie is like it is not afraid to just go like no adult movie would just be like fuck it, here it is. Like this is there's a lot of crazy shit in this movie.
Yeah.
Like an adult would be like maybe I shouldn't do this in a movie, and that's kind of what I dig about it.
Yeah, not many people are going to be like, hey, let's take a piece of like HVAC ducting and then like put a little like, I don't know, like plaster face on it and have it spew some sort of ambiguously white liquid into a person's mouth.
Yeah.
It could happen.
It could.
I'm just saying.
It could happen to anyone at any time. And I love that it's on Tubi because Tubi reminds me of the old days when there were just millions of videos in a store and someone could accidentally rent this. And then
Tubi is a great source for that. Like, just like, what the hell did I just accidentally stumble upon? I'm going to press play.
Yeah. And it's like the last place I think where that can happen, where you just suddenly find something and you're like, what? Which I've done a couple times, trying to find shot on video stuff on there. There's a lot to find, which is exciting.
Yeah.
Limbo's on there, which is crazy.
Yep. So when it was like my savior when I had my second daughter a few years back, because, babies can't sleep at all. So I spent a lot of time at like 2 a.m, while she was like napping for a brief moment, turning on Tubi and just seeing what crazy stuff I could find. And 2 a.m. and Tubi movies are like a pretty made in heaven combination there. So there was so many crazy things I watched.
That's the way it should be, though. That is how we all discovered.
I was reliving the days of midnight movies for real back then.
There's a lot of Tubi stuff that's on there now too, where you can tell it's like somebody had an iPhone in a dream and they've made this movie. And it's like, some of them aren't great. Some of them are great in spite of themselves, but it's like, it's cool that there's like a place for these movies democratically to exist for people to find.
And apparently Tubi is one of the best paying of the streaming services as well, which is why so many indie horror filmmakers, indie filmmakers in general, put their movies on there because they actually get some kind of revenue from it. If they're going to stream, it's one of the better ones to stream through.
Yeah. And Mark Dockerman in chat said he loves that these guys were just in the middle of nowhere in northern PA in the 80s making this movie, which makes me feel proud to be from here.
And that's sort of why they made it, according to Mark Poloni. Anyway, when I talked to him, he was just like, "You're like bored as hell in the middle of a snowstorm, so we decided to make a movie."
And it doesn't run much longer than an hour, so we're not asking too much from you tonight.
No, and in my humble opinion, anyway, as far as SOV movies go, it's one of the better ones. I guess maybe we'll talk about it a little bit more, but like it's just a lot of the times these movies are made by folks that literally just maybe purchased the camera like last week and or getting at it. it seems like I mean, although this is one of the first Polonia Brothers movies, they had dabbled a little bit before this, and it sort of shows they have some creativity. They have some attempts at camera angles and lighting, and they take advantage of some of the flaws of the video format, some of the poor lighting and the mushy blacks and the audio smears and all that stuff. They do a good job of like writing those limitations into some kind of like benefit, I think, and it sort of adds to the trippy atmosphere of the movie, which, you know, there are a lot of moments in the movie that, although they're not like, you know, technically well done, they feel intentional, which is a lot better than a lot of SOV movies, I think, as much as I love them.
Yeah.
There's definitely something going on in it. There were creative decisions being made as opposed to just aiming the camera and shooting. There is that too.
I think too, when you do as you did for your book, a deep dive into SOV, after a while, you get kind of Stockholm syndrome where you're like, when I first started, I wouldn't think this was a great movie, but now I fucking love it.
You know,
what I mean?
That's true. So there's definitely like reason to doubt my my taste in these things, because like maybe I've just seen so many of them, and they've taken over my brain or like melted it down a little bit so that my
There's
sense
no
of
turning back
discrimination
now.
is less astute than it was. But also I think I've maybe just seen so many other movies that's like, it's kind of cool to like just watch movies like this and just see something that's just so like unfiltered. It's very punk rock. I grew up listening to punk rock, hardcore, death metal, extreme metal, like where it's all DIY. It's all very underground, very like, there's not a lot of gatekeepers. There's not a lot of like, you don't have commercial aspirations really. So it's just, you're not withheld to like some kind of financier or anyone that really expects it to do anything. And so you kind of just do whatever the fuck you want. And it's sort of refreshing.
I always look at shot on videos close to like the second wave of black metal, where it's like, you know, it's like the drums are supposed to sound like shit. You know what I mean? And like, you're going to get what you get. And like the covers should look scratchy, but then also they remind me of, they're like the last bastion of like regional cinema, because like there was no producer notes, like you said, and nobody telling them like, maybe you shouldn't do this, or maybe you, maybe this story should be, you know, it's an hour long. How long does it have to be? There's no rules at all. And I think there's so many rules in cinema today. It's close to Italian cinema too, where it's like, I don't know where this movie's going, but I'm going to hang on for it.
Yeah. And to kind of like go with the black metal riff there, I feel like, I think SOV horror had sort of a similar trajectory too. So it started out with people making things on video because it was available, it was cheap, they could get their hands on it. It looked like crap, it sounded like crap, but that's kind of like just the result of the equipment they were using. So that's sort of like, you know, the early like second wave, like all the early like Dark Throne or like Ulver, or, you know, those type of bands, early Emperor and stuff like. And then you get like to like the mid 80s, and then you get like a movie like Blood Cult, where they're like, oh, so this is going to be like, to use black metal, like Transylvanian Hunger Baby, like where they're like purposely like, let's make it just this people love this, let's make it as shitty sounding as possible. It's not, where you kind of lose that some of the authenticity of the ineptness, where people like purposely trying to be as inept as possible. So SOV horror gets a little bit of that towards the mid to late 80s, and where they're like, oh, people seem to be into this, so let's like purposely just be like marketed as being crap. But for the most part though, I think the movement is like refreshingly amateur and pure, and like just people just making a crazy horror movie because they have crazy ideas in their head, and they now have some equipment to do it with. I just love that about SOV stuff.
So suddenly it went from film costing so much and editing, and it was out of people's hands to do it. And like, and then all of a sudden, like now anybody can make a movie, even if they shouldn't, maybe. But that's the beauty of like checking all these out. 'Cause there's some that like, I think Todd Sheets movies are awesome, but it's like, you know, on any budget, you know, and they're very metal. You know, the most metal probably.
Oh, he loves to get his band in there all the time too.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Which is cool.
Why wouldn't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
When I talked to him, he was saving raccoons, which like totally puts you in a different mindset. Like I was waiting for the most evil dude in the world when I talked to him.
He's an unusual guy in the scene, because he's like, so I've never like, I tried so hard to interview him for the book. By the way, I have a book called Handheld Hell that's about SOV horror. Just a quick little flash.
Handheld Hell.
Yep, available from TerrorVision. who releases Blu-rays and LPs now for a lot of cult horror stuff. But anyway, I tried so hard to interview him for the book because we've been like in contact with each other for a while. I've written some music for, like, I've written like little bits of music for a few of his films, Dreaming Purple Neon and Bone Hill Road and a few other things. And so I tried to interview him. He couldn't make the schedules work, so I wanted to talk to him. But like my interactions with him are, yeah, like he's kind of like I mean, he's like a lot of metalheads, I guess. Like you expect them to be like brash and like, you know, belligerent and stuff, but they're actually like, you know, like sweethearts that are like all kind of love animals and have soft spots for whatever. But
it's from in the one documentary, Until the Light Takes Us. I say the Fenris stuff from that movie so much because he's like the nicest guy in that movie.
Yeah,
like, you want to be his best friend, you know.
Well, it's funny because he used to have like a pretty bad reputation back in the day when he was trying too hard to be cult, but the people will come around on him as being like, oh no, actually he's kind of a nice dude. But
I always say that is like, we're not just all sitting around listening to fucking Depeche Mode, okay?
Like, yeah, we all got less. We got, well, now a lot of these people have kids to raise and you know, preschool tuitions to pay and stuff. So it's hard to be too black metal, like when you're, you know, trying to raise a daughter in this world. I saw one comment there that says like there's lots of cult rules in black metal. That's true. It did get that way. But back in the first part, like the mid 90s and stuff, like it wasn't so much concerned with being cult until like, you know, I guess maybe Lords of Chaos coming out. That book helped to put a little bit more in the spotlight and get people like going, oh man, those people are like badass. I got to be like them, and trying to be as cult as possible.
It's like it's like gangster rap for white kids, really. Like you can, you know.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
And then, you know, there was a couple TV show episodes, you know, that they read Lords of Chaos and like, oh, we can turn this into like, you know, our like TV version of it.
Yeah, well, then there's the movie Lords of Chaos now.
Yeah.
That doesn't hit it quite the same. And then also that movie The Ritual that came out on Netflix a few years back, based on a book that actually the movie omits it, but the book features a black metal band that's trying to like be as cult as like the, you know, 90s Norwegian dudes, and actually like trying to ritually murder some people. But yeah, so it's gotten a little bit more, you know, mainstream.
And there's even the tie because the band Absurd takes their name from the Joe D'Amato movie too. So there's a lot of crossover in these worlds.
They're very, I mean, yeah, that's like a Venn diagram that's just barely offset. Like, you know, there's a lot of overlap between the two scenes for sure. Extreme metal and horror. And I, you know, when I was a teenager in the early 20s, I was in a lot of extreme metal bands. And so like, it seems natural that I would move to being obsessed with this type of horror. But I mean, yeah, it's all underground, like trying to be as DIY as possible and not worrying about anyone telling you that's too extreme or that's too unmainstream or whatever. And, you know, the purpose being like, yeah, fuck the mainstream. Like, let's do something we wouldn't be able to do under circumstances. Can't talk.
Yeah.
Well, think about that though. Like back in those days, I hate to say it like that, you know, but it was some time ago that it was to be shocking. You didn't have to try that hard. Like, you know, Ozzy biting the head off the bat and everything was like, oh my God. But then it just became more and more passe. You had to keep doing more things.
Yeah. The 70s really opened up things a lot. I mean, obviously the 80s where it got really gory, but like, you know, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you know, Black Christmas, even maybe in terms of like, not necessarily like graphic horror, but like just how like icky horror could feel. Like they really got in there with that. And then obviously, you know, once people like Tom Savini came around and like really put all that stuff on the screen, that like, it's like, well, how do you possibly like top that without just moving into shit like a Serbian film? So yeah. Anyway,
there's always a connection there, like between horror movies and maybe not even metal bands, like Skinny Puppy. You know, like, do you ever see any of Skinny Puppy's live shows? They're really bizarre and gory and very strange, like a horror movie. So there is a crossover between any kind of music that's trying to push the envelope and horror.
Yeah, all
But-
this transgressive outsider art of all kinds, like, yeah, kind of meshes together, which is cool because, like, yeah, you see it. Bands taking inspiration from movies in their lyrics, Mortician or whatever. And then, like, yeah, there's movies that like feature a lot of black metal and stuff now and death metal. I mean, not just Ace Ventura featuring Cannibal
Yeah.
Corpse, but it's more and more common. So it's pretty cool because I'm a fan of like all those scenes. So it's cool to see them like smashed together.
It always felt like in when bands first started doing it too, like when Entombed and Left Hand Path has the Phantasm theme in the middle of the song, you're like, oh fuck, these guys know Phantasm, but
Mhm.
but it wasn't like like they didn't make it like super obvious. It's like, here's that riff, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah, a little insider nod where you had to like be a horror fan to go, hey, that sounds very familiar.
Yeah. Versus like there, especially in Doom, there's so much of it with like Electric Wizard. Like if you like 70s British movies, good news, listen to Electric Wizard. That's all like every sample is. And like Hooded Menace is another band that does a ton of it, and Uncle Acid. Like there's a lot of that feel of like that's a lot of the stuff we show on the show is like that like early 70s to mid 70s like drive-in stuff, and it fits in really well with like you said, hard rock and stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So what inspired you to write the book? Like when did you come up with the thought to write the book?
So probably like 3 or 4, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, I was like on a kick just going through a bunch of SLV horror, and it just like clicked with me. A lot of things we already talked about with just coming from background in hardcore punk and metal, like just it really clicked on that level with the approach that they took, and just the fact that it was just so outsider, just like didn't really give a fuck about like what the Hollywood rules would be, and even like what more still underground but like more mainstream horror might be. And so I started like kind of looking into more of that, like how is this possible? Because there's always like some kind of something that kicks off like a movement like that, because it is like a movement. I mean, it's very limited time that video was a medium actually used for making movies, before DVD came in and digital video like kind of took over. And so it's like basically limited to like 83 to like maybe like most of it was done by 95. There's some stuff in like the late 90s, and people are doing it intentionally now, but like the scene was kind of over by the mid 90s. So I was kind of like asking myself, like, what led to that? Like, why was it so, although most people haven't heard a lot of these movies, it's still fairly prolific. There's still a lot of them that came out in a short amount of time. So I wanted to like investigate like why that had happened. And I come across a few other books about it. I come across Bleeding Skull, the site. They review a lot of these type of movies. Their writing style like really appeals to me. I feel like my writing style is kind of similar to Joseph Ziemba, who's the main writer over there. And then also I had a brain for it. Analog Nightmares, I think is the book. Richard Mogg. And so I read through that, and just like it just opened my mind even more to like just how many of these were floating around, and like not like just they all. I already was kind of fan of like regional horror, which is sort of like similar in that like it's movies made that are outside of kind of the Hollywood machine. Like they're just some dude in Wisconsin that like had a 16 millimeter or maybe a 35 millimeter camera and was like went to go make a movie, but wasn't trying to get in Hollywood. He was just making something that was like out of his own imagination and wasn't trying to make money with it. And so it all kind of led to me just going, well, there's some books out there, but like not really anything that explores this too in depth. Like Bleeding Skull, as great as they are, I think was a little too flippant's too strong of a word, but like they didn't really dig into like the artistry behind it, maybe like or what like was going through these filmmakers' heads when they were trying to make them, which I wanted to do more. And then Analog Nightmares is a little bit more of a catalog. It's not so much of like digging into kind of the history and stuff. So I was like, you know what, I've been writing for decades, like just short stories and stuff. I was kind of like, I had moved on to music, and I was kind of getting bored of music. So I'm like, maybe now's a good time to try and write a book. And this seems like a good niche that like hasn't been fully covered. And so I went I started looking into it and started digging into all the different reasons for why this scene came to be, and it just I think was an interesting story, and one that had kind of a decent like linear, flow through to it, like all the different confluence of things that came together to and allow Bob in his backyard to make a horror movie, and then where that may have the elements that led to that like booming in popularity, like the rise of video stores, the unsatiable need for content to fill those video store shelves that led to like people like Tim Ritter being able to like bring his movie in on a VHS tape to his local like video store clerk and be like, hey, would you guys carry my movie? And then be like, sure, yeah, people rent anything, so we'll might as well put Day of the Reaper on the shelf here. And so like that was super interesting. And also following like DVD coming into play and mini DV and things like that slowed it down. But then how I wanted to like separate it from things like Analog Nightmares by seeing how this weird little scene like influence things going forward, because there's still a ton of like digital filmmaking and smartphones and these boutique labels that have popped up have all enabled like a new wave of amateur filmmakers to do their thing. Sorry, biggest budget SOV film I found real quick. I saw that pop up. Let me it's probably like Blood Cult, maybe, which I supposedly had like just a marketing budget of like $75,000. I'm not exactly sure of how much the production budget was, but that was like one of the ones where like actual producers kind of jumped in and were like, let's make a movie on video and sell it to the video stores because that's the thing right now. So it had a little bit more of a push. I think Boarding House probably had a decent budget because it was just, they were trying to make like a legit movie that just they went for video instead, and then blew it up to 35 millimeter. There's probably some other ones I'm brain farting on. And then bands I was in, my main one was Fall of Empyrean, which was a melodic doom death band. In the early 2000s, we released like 4 albums and then a demo. And then I was in a band called The Liquescent Horror that was like funeral doom, like horror music inspires, like sort of like if you took a horror movie soundtrack and meshed it with really slow doom metal with growly vocals. It was that. Nowadays I do mostly like instrumental, like the soundtracky music. I've driven a couple Halloween inspired albums, and then a few other ones are just kind of random, like ambient type stuff. But anyway, so getting back to the book, yeah, so I wanted to follow that through to the current day and follow like this new breed of filmmaker that records first on like mini DV, and then now it's just like whatever digital format they want to do, because it's just such high quality, and like it costs, again, like video next to nothing, and non-linear editing really changed the game too. Like you didn't have to freaking put together tape on a deck in order. And if you messed up in like, because back in the day, you used to have to like lay the tape out. And then if you realized you messed up back on minute 5 and you're on minute like 50, well, you lose 45 minutes of the film that you made. You have to reconstruct that later after you fix that edit. But when things like, Premiere Pro and stuff came out, like you can move stuff around all you want to. It's way easier to sync up video and audio and incorporate music. So that also changed the game, because like before Adobe moved on to things like their, monthly fee, you could buy it for one flat fee, or, people pirated it plenty to just have this at their hands, like for nothing. And so you could make movies even easier than you could back in the day. You could get it out there if you wanted to even easier because of streaming platforms like Tubi and Amazon used to just let anyone upload whatever. It's only recently that they changed it to have like some gatekeeping where you have some quality control or some, have some prerequisites to uploading, but like you could do whatever. And so I wanted to like follow that through. And it is a very direct line between SOV horror / 8mm horror and these movies being made today digitally. And it's sort of interesting to see the contrast, like the similarities in like technological, historical, social circumstances, and then also the differences between like the product, because obviously movies today look way better just by their their very nature, because it's just the equipment's so much better. But that doesn't necessarily mean the filmmaking quality is better. But you do get the same, I think, feel from a lot of like people like Fred Vogel or Brian Paulin, Chris LaMartina, that are out there like making like these offbeat, like either there's some that are going the ultra gory route, there's some that are just making things that are really offbeat and weird. There's a lot of art house stuff out there that I mean, because doesn't matter who you have to please, so they're just making whatever they want. And so I think it's the same kind of, it mirrors the interesting like creative process where like it kind of rewards you just being ballsy and having some motivation and not necessarily the technical background.
Who made that movie Freak? Do you know what movie I'm talking about called Freak?
I do, but
it's recent. It looks like it's really old, but somebody made it recently. I think it just came out on VHS not too long ago from Lunch Meat, and it's the monster in it is like the stick man. He's like super skinny.
Okay, I'm seeing on IMDb right now. Lucky Cerruti looks as the director and writer. It looks interesting. I gotta check it out. I'd only heard of it in passing, but I haven't really seen it. But
highly recommended.
Okay, I mean, the art on there looks cool. And it's only 52 minutes, so that's not much of a time commitment, and it's on Tubi apparently. So,
okay, awesome. I'm always like amazed too by like there are these whole industries of what's the one company that like you could order any horror movie you wanted. The one that Tina Kraus was in all of their movies.
Oh, yeah. Why am I Wave Entertainment or whatever?
Wave Entertainment. Yeah, and like that documentary is amazing about them because it's like it's kind of like disreputable feeling, but everybody is so innocent and nice in it. It's such a weird juxtaposition. Right? Everybody and it's like they were basically making murder movies, like fake snuff movies to order.
It's funny because like in that documentary, and then also from talking to Tina Kraus for the book, it was kind of like they had a mix of like the weirdos that were like, I basically want to watch this person die. So here's my rough scenario. Like I'll give you, whatever it was. I don't even know how much they cost, a couple $100s to kill this person on screen for me, or to do this fetish thing. Like I want this person to die by having their face stomped on by some girl's bare feet or whatever. And like, versus like them saying like a lot of people that they worked with were just very sweet and like just I don't know, for some reason like just earnestly wanted this weird movie made. And so they were like, yeah, like there was some weird stuff, but like there's also like a lot of really just nice guys that just for some reason wanted this movie made.
It's funny because there's like such a gulf, like you said, between some of these movies. Like a movie like Shattered Dead is like very close to like a professional movie. You know what I mean? Even though it has SOV elements. And then you have like what we're watching tonight where it's like 3 kids in a snowstorm making a movie. But they're all like within this like, and I sometimes I even am guilty of confusing the 8mm, like the higher end ones with shot on video because they're so close, you know what I mean, to the same feel.
Yeah, there's a really wide chasm in quality between these. Because there's a few like Video Violence is another one that's like for me pretty close to like an actual movie. I mean, it's not Hollywood quality, but it's like about like it seems like they might have had a budget of like 150,000 or something like that when it wasn't nearly that much. Because there's like actual actors that like can deliver their lines and create some emotion, and there's a story that has a point, and like there's some messaging there that they want to get across. I mean, Gary Cohen, the director, had a background in theater and stuff, so he like knew some of the stuff, and a lot of the actors are from this theater troupe and everything. But yeah, there's that, and then there's like some of the Wave stuff, and just other a lot of examples of people that just like just were bored, and that they could tell they were bored and had access to some equipment.
Like you said, there was such a fiending for movies. Like it's like now, like when streaming started, that there just needs to be content. That was that wave of like video stores just needed horror to be in there.
Yeah, real quick on the comments, like someone's talking about diving into my discography. All of that stuff is available on jbirding.bandcamp.com, including that To Hell for the Holidays EP. I think I might still, if you collect records, I did initially release that on 7-inch. I think I still have a couple of them So if you're interested, like, let me know. And the artwork for the book is by Chad Keith. He's done a lot of covers and comic book illustrations and stuff. He's on Instagram. He's great. And obviously the cover kicks ass. So I'm grateful to him that that cover has sold, more than a handful of copies of the book. So that's great.
It's really great.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's just, there's stuff all over the spectrum in SOV horror, 8mm horror. And there's a lot of like 16mm ones that have kind of the feel of SOV horror. Like the Soul Tangler was one I really wanted to cover because I love that movie so much.
Yeah.
It's sort of a Reanimator ripoff, but it's also like just like a really bizarre, like trancy, like, I don't know. It's just, it gives me like a weird feel when I watch it. And it's, I wanted to cover it so bad, but I was like, okay, if I get in a 16mm horror, then I was like, you're opening up a whole can of worms. Cause like there's lots of professional filmmakers that chose to make on 16mm. So it's like, let's cut off 8mm. And even with the 8mm stuff, like I cut out things like Necromantic, where it's like, yeah, technically that was 8mm, but Bucharite went on to like be plenty well known. So it's like, I probably pronounced his name wrong, but like, you don't need me covering Necromantic. So yeah, there's a thing. See, someone just talked about things and how it's a test of patience. I loved that episode of The Last Drive-In. I'm not the hugest fan of Sledgehammer, but I do appreciate its place in the scene. But Things I love because it's like a perfect encapsulation of all the goofy, weird, bizarre, ballsy shit about SOV horror, and that's like kind of a mix of mediums. It's not. They did a lot of different things. It's mostly 8mm, but then also like some 16mm as well. But it's just, and Barry J. Gillis is like such a character. Like, dude was like, he was one of the most helpful people when I was putting together the book. Like, he was so eager to talk about things, and just help me with like behind the scenes imagery and doing a long interview. Like his interview was like super long. I had to edit it down because it just was like, I didn't want it to be like 30
I love that
pages.
people are freaked out by Things, and like Wicked World is even more fucked up. Like it goes even further.
I think he's a little more.
I think we lost.
Oh, I hope we didn't lose our guest. No.
We'll hold on for a second and
we talk about things on every show. That's what's so funny. Now we're like talking about things for real on the show with where it's pertinent to what we're watching.
Yeah, exactly. I love Things too. I'm so excited to hear someone else defend Things. Which I think maybe I don't know if it needs defended or not.
No.
I like Necrophiles a lot too. I see that Vince brought that out. That's a really good one too.
You know why? Because on the Joe Bob show, they get a lot of it's high profile and everybody loves it, deservedly so, but it attracts a lot of people that are going to be like, what is this shit? I don't understand what this shit is.
Well, it's definitely like we were saying that they're not necessarily mainstream films, and Things it's a movie as much about eating sandwiches as it is anything else. I don't know what the fuck it's about. But I like that. I love sometimes when movies try people's patience, as you can tell by a lot of the movies I pick. Like I like, hey, there he is.
Sorry, internet connection issues. It's been spotty here.
It's those bugs from Things that got you.
I could only hope. Let me turn off my.
I was just saying that like my joy in that movie is that it's as much about making sandwiches as it is about whatever it's about. Like there's a lot of sandwich making.
A movie that devotes that much time to making cheese sandwiches with insects in it, and then throws jackets in the freezer for some reason. Like I asked Barry about that specifically, like what the hell's with the jacket in the freezer? And he's like, well, we're on set and it was hot and the freezer seemed like a good place for me to put this jacket because I didn't want to wear it anymore. I'm like, all right, sure. That seems like the better explanation than any other one, I guess. So
it's just I learned about it from Robin Bougie from Cinema Sewer, and he was like, you have to watch it even if you hate it. Like you're gonna like, I don't know if anybody will. It's because like he had 3 reviews and it like hit the whole like spectrum of like you should never watch this movie, and then someone loving it and someone's like, I think this movie fucked me up. And I'm
I
like,
mean,
cool, whatever it is, like I'm gonna, it's gonna be something.
and it's definitely a divisive movie, and I can see why people would hate it with all their being, but like it's
Yeah.
just I just appreciate that audacity, like it because it's a mix of like of everything. Like there's definitely incompetence going on.
Mhm.
There's also just like I'm just gonna do whatever because like
Yeah.
why not? And like just and like yeah, like half none of the audio was captured, or at least it was, but it wasn't usable. So they dubbed everything in post, and
which I love.
they didn't have the dialogue anymore. So Barry like had to like they were like improving, like going, okay, let's kind of match their lip movements. And so like it's just like a perfect storm of just like there's no way that movie could have ever been made again because it's just so unique and such a unique set of circumstances that came together that enabled its existence.
I think it's funny too. You brought up Reanimator. It feels like so many shot on video movies were like, I'm gonna make my own Reanimator. That feels like the one that gets made like over and like, there's several different ones, and it's like, wow, that's kind of crazy that that's the movie.
Reanimator Academy.
But
Yeah.
unfortunately, so many of them do not have Barbara Crampton, and that is
No,
Most of them.
that
yeah,
definitely takes away.
none of them do. Yeah,
The Soul Tangler like gets really close to capturing like the really fun special effects of Reanimator because there's some really cool
Mhm.
practical stuff in Soul Tangler, but yeah, it's still there's no corpse giving cunnilingus to Barbara Crampton in it, and that
Yeah.
is an essential element missing from the ripoffs.
It's just, I think it's just that was that movie hit the right time, and it's in the middle of that. So it's like that's a movie we're gonna do.
Oh yeah, I mean that was one that like broke through kind of. So and it
Yeah.
was there weren't that many splatter flicks at the time that like really kind of made a dent. I mean, there was splatter back then, but like not ones that were quite as popular as Reanimator was. So it makes sense that it was influential, but
Yeah. All right.
sorry, go ahead.
Well, is it time for our hallucinations inspired cocktail? I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm getting
I'm
kind
quite
of thirsty.
excited.
All right, let's do it.
Welcome to the drink video. Tonight, shot on video hallucinations. We're going to make a drink. It is called a hallucination. Get ready. Wait, what am I doing?
You're just going to it.
I get so excited about making a drink. Okay, look, it's got an ounce of vodka, an ounce of gin, an ounce of rum, an ounce of triple sec, and a splash of your favorite cola. Me would be Pepsi, the low zero sugar Pepsi. I'm not trying to get a sponsorship. Maybe I am.
You'll be doing the Pepsi halftime show next time.
Call me Usher.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, before I so quickly jumped into this, put all these together. There's all your liquor. You're going to put it over ice. Give it a little stir. It helps if you have a stir. This is from Head Trip Glass. Again, beautiful stir. You can find them on Instagram. And you're just going to top it with a little bit of soda.
That's going to be strong.
It's going to be real strong. Real strong. But you know what? I think you can handle it. Enjoy. Let's get back to the movie. And what do we always say?
Zeus.
Pazuzu.
Well, that one ended a little abruptly. I wasn't prepared, but Pazuzu.
Pazuzu.
And cheers to our
Pazuzu.
special guest, Justin Burning.
Yep, and I'm actually drinking the drink. Although I couldn't go with I was telling the guys beforehand, I couldn't go with the whole full 4 ounces of alcohol. So it's 2 ounces and more Coke Zero, unfortunately, but it's still pretty good.
So cheers.
Awesome.
And
Glad you're enjoying it.
to shot on video thrills, which we're going to open our audience's minds to tonight, I'm sure, with hallucinations.
I mean, I guess if this is going to be your first SOV horror movie, this one isn't as bad as you could have. It's not quite as like brain fuckery as things, but it's got some stuff in it, and like it definitely, for it being made by 3 like teenagers bored in the blizzard, it's pretty interesting. I think the stuff they came up with very limited resources.
It's not a boring movie by any means.
No, and it's barely an hour. So like it feels long to me. It feels longer than that only because it's like just such a punch to the gray matter. Sometimes you're like, I'm not sure what I'm watching, so I'm not sure how to process this. But yeah, that's a good one. It's one of my favorite SOV horror movies. And one of the ones like when I first saw it, I was just like, it just made an impression. Because I'd seen so many at that point where I was like, okay, I mean, I can see that this was made by some rando with a crappy, camcorder. But this one felt like a little bit, like I said, a little bit more intentional. Yeah, it's a good one, I think.
We showed Boarding House and no one rioted, so I think we'll be okay.
Yeah.
Did you see what you guys when you show Boarding House? You guys show the director's cut though. Did you show the director's cut?
We did. Yeah.
Yes.
The 240-minute one where it's just like,
oh no, we didn't watch the 240-minute one.
Yeah, check it out if you've got the AGFA Blu-ray. Check out the director's cut that's on there. It's like, I mean, Boarding Cut's a pretty crazy movie as it is, but or Boarding House is a pretty crazy movie as it is, but like 240 minutes of it is like where John Wintergate didn't cut like anything, and like it's just like so many tangents and so many like weird like PowerPoint swipe edits and stuff. Like it's just like, what were you thinking, dude? And it's just that's such an indulgent movie. It's kind of like, I kind of love that too, because it's just obvious that John Wintergate was just like, you know what, I'm doing whatever the hell I want. I don't care. I'm gonna put everything I filmed, I'm gonna put in this. There's not gonna be one cut bit, and it's just I'm gonna make it fit somehow. And yeah, it's just nuts.
Wasn't Mike Justice on for the Boarding House episode?
Yeah, he was. He picked that one. Yeah.
Yes.
So, hey, get well to Jen Upton, by the way. I saw that she's checking in. She has COVID, but she's checking in on the show. So please get better. And this movie may be even better for you on COVID.
Yeah. It's the perfect time.
A little brain fog will help you along with this one.
Yeah.
Hey, and here's the t-shirt design for the April Ghouls Drive-In Monsterama, created by moi. You can go order this on the April Ghouls. It's called the Drive-In Super Monsterama page on Facebook. There's a post on there. You can go get in touch with them to place your order. Don't try and buy it from the Riverside Drive-In because they're not the ones selling it. You can order it now and have it shipped to you, or you can just order it and pick it up at the event if you're going to the event, and we hope you're going to the event. 2 nights, 8 fantastic films: Return of the Living Dead, Messiah of Evil, The Children, Death Dream, and Sam, what's the second night?
It is Killer Clowns, Escape from New York, Star Crash, and what is the last movie? Galaxy of Terror. I want to say Horror Planet, which is the same title, right?
That's a nice lineup. Messiah of Evil rules, by the way.
You're
gonna be Bill's best friend because is definitely up there.
It's a totally underrated, very moody, very eerie flick that everyone who loves Lovecraftian type horror should check out. If seaside horror is your thing, which it is very much mine, even though there's not that many horror movies like that, but
we talk a lot on the show about how good, Bill. I'm sure you're going to say what
I was just going to tell you to say it.
Yeah, we have this theory that all these seaside towns are just a few towns over from each other. So Dead and Buried's right up the coast, and then there's Halloween 3's a little further up from there. Like all these, it's like little dots up into the Pacific Northwest, and they're just all fucked up towns.
They're all stumbling upon the old ones. So it's a good Messiah of Evil is a good one to double team with. Dark Waters, I think it's called. It's a Italian / like Croatian production. I can't remember what the other country it's involved in it, but it's a good one. It was released by Severin a few years back.
I think Arrow is releasing it pretty soon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I love that movie. It's low budgeted, but it works. It's really cool.
Yeah, for sure. I saw someone else mention Chester Turner. I do have love for Chester Turner. There's a write-up of Black Devil Doll from Hell in the book. I like Quaded Zone as well. But yeah, he's an interesting one. Very interesting guy that like came out of nowhere to make a $5,000 horror movie with like one of the craziest performances from a lead actress, besides maybe like Isabella Johnny in Possession.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just nuts. And so yeah, there I do have some love for Chester Turner, and I'm kind of want him to come back and make something else, but I also kind of like that he just made 2 really fucked up movies and then disappeared.
Yeah. That's all you get.
Yep.
Yeah, Bill and I have been doing a bunch of commentaries for Visual Vengeance, and we're always like amazed by some of the movies that we get from them, because we're like, I've never heard of this, and it's like, and then it like blows our minds of how wild they are. So
Yeah, because
Yeah.
we probably never would have watched it
yeah,
if we hadn't been hired to do the commentary. But I was so glad we did with everything that we've watched so far. There hasn't
Yeah.
been anything that I've hated, and it's just a lot of it is just crazy inventive stuff that that they just pulled out of thin air and made it happen for somehow, even if it doesn't look quite right.
And
Who
that's the big,
cares?
I think that's a big part of the fun of these movies is like there is still that sense of surprise. Like you're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you can easily watch something and be like, okay, I thought I knew what to expect from this, but like I was completely wrong.
like Suburban Sasquatch has like an extended hot dog in a car eating sequence where you're like,
You know,
okay, why is that woman eating a hot dog?
I love scenes like that where let's just
Yeah.
like, why were you filming this?
Yeah.
And then why did it make it past the
Yeah.
editing table? And then why is this in here? And why is it 6 minutes of it?
Yeah.
There's like one of the ones I always think of like with a scene like that is from the movie Mausoleum that Vinegar Syndrome released a little while ago, which I love. It's one of my favorite movies from them.
It's a Bill
like-
favorite too. Yeah.
But there's literally like 10 minutes of that gardener just tending to the lawn before he bangs the main girl. But like
It's so hot, Justin. It's like the
Is it?
sexual tension.
is it the sexual
building.
tension?
Yes.
Okay.
Between him and Bobby Breezy, who would never look at him for half a second. And
We've talked about this scene several times. By
I mean,
the way.
it's an amazing scene. It's just like
Yeah.
what's going okay, he's just cutting the grass or whatever for like 10 minutes and like we're watching it in real
Also,
time.
there's like I like when they just throw in like wacky comedy into movies that otherwise have been super violent and like you know what I mean. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, here's some hijinks.
Yeah, we gotta have the hijinks, man. I mean, you can't.
Yeah.
You have to relieve that tension created by all the blood spatter. You gotta like.
Yeah.
There's only so many like intestine spools you can see coming out of someone's anus before you're like, okay, I really need someone slipping on a banana peel right now.
Yeah.
I wanna do a rave in a mausoleum like Susan. Like she had the pink and blue lights in the mausoleum, and then the coffin with all the smoke coming out of it. It could be a thing.
I mean, there's sort of a thing. I mean, that's Trash and Return of the Living Dead, kind of. It's not full on rave, but you know. And then I think I want to say there's a scene from what's the movie called? One Dark Night.
One Dark Night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of a thing. We can keep going though. I mean, I'm not going to turn down more, mausoleum rape scenes. But yeah,
I always like when people show up to a place that they should not have a party at and have a party and things magically go wrong. Like that's all I need.
Shopping mall.
Shopping malls and shopping malls my favorite weirdness because those dudes are all like swinging, like soft swinging in that furniture store.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like they're like really close to each other. And it's like nobody did that. Like I don't know. Maybe I didn't grow up like this sounds like a
you just weren't hanging in the right circle, Sam. Because
right. This is
my friends and I all did that. Like
soft swinging.
Yeah,
I
maybe
love it
I
when you
didn't
say
grow up
soft
in.
swinging.
I'm going to sound like Fox News. Maybe I didn't grow up in California, and maybe that's how they do it in California. But yeah, I was like, "What is going on?" And there's the couple that's the virginal couple. Like, isn't this weird? Like all our friends are having sex, and we're the two geeks in the back of the store just hanging out. And that's why I love Chopping Mall.
There are some good things about Chopping Mall, but it was one of the movies that like most blatantly lied about with its cover art.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was like, where the fuck is the robot I saw on the cover of this birding people and stuffing them into bags? Like instead we have like Johnny Five ripoff that's like shooting little
There was
lasers.
a rotting corpse hand on the cover on the poster for that movie, and I expected a zombie thing.
Yeah.
And it's called Chopping Mall. There's no chopping.
No.
I also
really
love
isn't.
thinking how many people saw Eating Raoul and knew what was going on in the beginning versus like people are like, why are they spending so much time with these two shop owners that we never see for the rest of the movie? Do you know what I mean? Like it's like such a weird, it's like a cameo for like 5 people. And that's why I think it's so cool. It's like, okay.
Oh, I saw someone just mentioned Takashi Miike. It's kind of funny because like he was a pretty big, I guess like what I'm trying to say, like I don't know, he was very involved in Japan's not necessarily like their direct to video scene and their SOV scene, which is kind of interesting. So their V cinema they call it over there. It was kind of like the Japanese and American scenes were very like tangential, kind of rising at the same time, doing the same thing. But like it's weird because like Japanese SOV horror movies are not nearly as derided as they are here, and direct-to-video stuff is not nearly as derided here or in Japan as it is here. Like it was kind of like a legit like training ground out over there. So you have like Mike who did a lot of movies like that, and then went on to do stuff people recognize, and obviously like Audition and stuff that have blown up in popularity.
I think because cable TV, there isn't really cable TV in Japan per se. Do you know what I mean? There's still a lot of people that have like direct TV and satellite, but it's a different. So video was more important, and a lot of anime came out as like OVAs. Do you know what I mean? Where it was just accepted that movies went straight to video. So I think there's a little bit more of that in Japanese culture, which is cool. I mean, there's so much cool stuff that came out on video there.
Yep, for sure. I wish we get to releasing more of it. There's like so many like when I was researching the book, I came across so many like really cool shorts, like long shorts / short features that were made in Japan, like just like splatter stuff that was just was really cool. I wish they would release over here.
Yeah,
really imaginative, like creature and gore effects that we deserve to see in the United States.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it's amazing the stuff that's coming out now. Like who knew, to go back, like Suburban Sasquatch would have a Blu-ray release with it, like has all these bells and whistles. Like it's amazing stuff that's coming out.
You can tell hopefully they start looking to other countries a little bit more, because you can tell they're starting to reach like fatigue state with that, because they're like Scream Factories decided, oh, we're gonna really try and release new movies. We're just gonna like do 4K on everything we've already released.
Yeah.
And so like they're just like trying to find something to get people to buy stuff with now. So hopefully they'll move to some of the more underground stuff in other countries.
I am excited about Funeral Home coming out from Scream Factory. I think that's the first Blu-ray that we've gotten in the States for Funeral Home.
Yeah, there's some. I'm keep waiting for Elves. Someone to finally release Elves.
Oh my God.
I mean, everyone needs to freaking just see how many cigarettes that Dan Haggerty smokes in that movie, for one. That's an amazing movie that more people need to see.
The best part about that movie is when Dan Haggerty comes to the family when they're eating Christmas Eve dinner, and the dad like breaks down the incest of the Third Reich and how they're going to put all this together, and the family's just all sitting there eating, and it's like, what?
I just love it. And he's just like, everyone he goes up to, he's smoking in their face for one, but then he's like, he starts off every conversation, "Merry Christmas." Yeah. Like, I mean, I guess I know it's a Christmas movie, but like he's trying to talk to him about like this take over the world by Nazi elves or whatever, and he's just like, I got to make sure I wish him a Merry Christmas before I get into this heavy shit.
Also, it's like the Santa that he replaces, like somehow has enough money to have a coke habit, like right? Like how? Like I don't think Santas at the mall make that much money.
Not now. Back in the 80s, it was a prestigious position that
exactly.
You could make $100,000 a year, being a Santa.
So that Cronenberg film put a stigma on it.
Oh yeah.
They made it look dangerous.
My dream every year when they do the Black Friday sale on Vinegar Syndrome, I'm like, well, this is the year that Elves is going to be on there, and I'm ready every year.
Yeah, I was disappointed. I keep hoping. So like worked with TerraVision on the book. I keep like trying to whisper in their ear, like, hey, Elves, you guys did the soundtrack. So like, get the movie. Obviously there's some kind of rights issue that's holding it up, or someone doesn't want to sign off on it, or they don't have the film elements or whatever it might be. But man, I keep hoping for it. I thought that was going to be the case. I never thought we'd get Spookies. We got Spookies. Yeah. I never thought we would get the Kindred. We got the Kindred. So
I spent all the money on the Les Spookies French Blu-ray, which was just a upgraded DVD, and then like literally like 2 weeks later, they're like, "Oh yeah, Vinegar Syndrome's putting it out." So I had to explain to my wife that I spent a lot of money on Les Spookies. She's like, "That movie sucks," and I'm like, "I know, but
no, it doesn't suck. It's one of the greatest."
It
makes no sense, but it's just like for someone who loves practical effects, it's just like a cornucopia of just wonderful special effects. And
I love it's also a movie where you were set up as to who the main characters are, and then people just go away.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah.
it was two movies shoved together at the end.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it totally is. Watch it. Views like two movies that have nothing to do with each other that was thrown together in the editing room, but it's the greatest.
Yeah. It's like the first time I watched it, I'm like, how could this be? Like, and I love that feeling when you watch a movie. Like, what? Okay. Like, and just stuff happens. It's great. Why is my head so big? Like, I'm like the puppet master above everybody for a second.
I was trying to make that countdown thing the
Oh,
big
yeah.
thing, but I
My
couldn't.
my dream release right now is the Three Thunder movies, the Italian Rambo ripoffs with Mark Gregory from 1990, The Bronx Warriors. The first two are on Tubi right now, which there are elements, and they have the rights to put them on Tubi. So I'm like, is this because it feels like one of those movies? Like, yeah, it's like three Native American Italians shot in America Rambo ripoffs. These really seem like somebody should put these out. Like if you like Strike Commando, I mean, this movie.
Oh, that's
these movies
Severin's bag, man. They do all.
Yeah,
the
this is
Italian
totally
ripoffs.
Severin's bag. Why is this not happening? I totally want this to happen. Yeah, you're right, Mark. Spookies was the first movie we showed. We put our money where our mouth is. Like we're going to bring you quality every week.
Spookies and Blood and Lace.
It's been all downhill from there, though, guys. I mean,
Yeah.
Sorry, Hallucinations is not going to change that trajectory.
Yeah.
This is our 167th episode.
Wow.
Yeah.
Going
It's
back
amazing.
to 2020, season 5,
You guys-
episode 7.
You guys still sort of have your sanity intact too, so congratulations on that.
I'm trying.
Do we?
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
sort of there's a qualifier there, but
Yeah.
Maybe not our.
And there is, and
integrity.
then you haven't seen the planning sessions where it's like, what are we going to show this week? I don't know. We have to like. Or what'd you say? Oh yeah, Becca said, when are we going to have the behind the music on the show to show? Yeah, the group
the process.
How it all comes together. Yeah.
Mike Justice is going to come film it. We're going to make a
yeah.
reality show out of the Drive-In Asylum double feature.
It's Bill yelling at me. It's 7:58. Where the fuck are you? And I'm like,
Oh, it's going
I'm
to be
still
all
in the shower.
scripted.
Yeah,
I'm going to be really mean in it. Just
Yeah.
warning you.
It's going to be like the Abbott and Costello TV movie that blew my mind when I was a kid. The Alan Liu, the one that has that has the strawberry malted story in it. Have you ever seen it? It's so bad. It has Harvey Korman and Buddy Hackett as them. And when I was a kid, I watched Abbott and Costello all the time. It just totally tears away everything. Like they hated each other. They were mean to each other. And it's like
Yeah,
when
they
I was
were.
like 8, when I was 8 watching it, I was like, what?
There's no way to
friends.
live.
Yeah, it ruined it. So that's what our reality show is gonna be like. It's gonna be me laying on the ground crying and Bill just yelling at me.
Guns N' Roses broke up for a reason.
Yeah,
Okay, they hated each other and they couldn't stand it. Like, and ABBA wouldn't get back together for $1 billion. They finally did, but I mean,
Yeah.
someone offered it.
Hey,
to
Guns N'
them.
Roses did. I saw him at a couple times now. I
Yeah.
got COVID the last time I saw him. It's great. My brother and I were just talking about it because we were like, our friend was like, "No, well, there's no way. This is a big stadium show. We can't get COVID." And every person in front of us was like, "Oh, like, oh my god, we're
I
probably
know
gonna
so
die."
many people that went to that show
Oh.
and came back with COVID. You're not the
Oh,
only one.
That's who opened for them. Actually, COVID was
COVID?
the opener. Yeah, Chrissy Hind and COVID was the
COVID-19.
opener. Yeah, that's
I hope it was worth it. I've seen some live stuff from the new version of Guns N' Roses, and it's not great.
yeah. It was a spectacle. I have to admit, I really like the karaoke version of the band because Tommy Stinson was in it, and I'm like,
Oh,
Tommy
okay.
Stinson, and like Robin Finnick was in it. Like, there's so many weird people. Like, how do these people all come together to play in a band? You know what I mean? And like more money, but it's like I like all these dudes, but it's such a weird lineup of people.
Who's the one that everyone hates now? Like, they're like, why is he still doing it? One of those hair metal guys.
Oh, Vince Neil, maybe?
Vince Neil. Yeah.
He is okay. So lameness. I live in a neighborhood where it's a little bougie neighborhood that they have like a block party every year where they have all washed up like rock stars play. And Vince Neil played 2 years ago at it, and it was just like he's just so bad now. And if you see any like Motley Crue videos now, it's just everyone else can kind of keep things together, but his voice is gone. And like he's not even saying English words anymore when he sings. It's just like whatever like drunken garbage just like slithered out of his throat.
Why doesn't he just lip sync like everybody, like any self-respecting artist would do if that happened to them?
He's not self-respecting. That's the problem. He has no self-respect left, I don't think.
I
But
saw someone bring up Steven Adler. I have a Steven Adler story that makes me look bad. When Guns N' Roses went in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, we went to see Duff speak the night before, and my brother and I were in an alley smoking weed, and Steven Adler said, "Hey guys, you shouldn't smoke weed in public." And I was like, "Steven, of all people, like don't make this my rock bottom moment." And he's like, "Yeah, I guess you're right. I've done some shit, huh?" And that was the end. That was it. We both had a little laugh.
Far out.
Yeah,
not
far out. Who
everyone's
knew,
smoking weed in public.
yeah, who knew Steven Adler would narc me out about smoking a joint? But
He was ahead of the curve.
Yeah. So, of all the things I could be doing, how bad? Yeah, Talking Heads is another band. They're like everybody got excited when they did the press conference for that movie. They're like, God, it seems like everybody's getting along. Yet they're still not going to do anything. You can buy the Blu-ray though, which is pretty rad. That there's a Stop Making Sense Blu-ray. I mean, at least there's that. But
I
Vince
saw that
Neil's-
movie in a theater. I went to the Rex Theater to see Stop Making Sense.
Oh,
It was amazing. It was
yeah.
so good. And I'm not even a huge Talking Heads fan. I was really into it.
I'm gonna go long term on my Vince Neil hate. He killed Razzle, so fuck him forever. And
Yeah.
I've never liked Vince Neil, so I think I came along in the wrong time because like when I, we were talking about when you get into music, Justin, and like, you want to feel like the street cred that you get from metal. Like I was in between, like I got into metal right after Theater of Pain came out when everybody's like, oh, the Motley Crue, Satanic, whatever. You know what I mean? And I went like straight into like Slayer. So it was like by that point, it's like, how do you go back? You can't go back to Motley Crue. You're already past it. And then what's heavier than that? You start getting into your Venoms and other stuff. And you're like, yeah, I don't need Dr. Feelgood. I'm quite fine. Thank you.
Yeah. I came back to hair metal later when I was like
Yeah.
less concerned about seeking out extremes, but
yeah. I like really like my favorite thing about hair metal is finding bands that nobody was listening to, like Tora Tora or like Shark Island, and like these really weird ones. And like there were just so many bands at that point.
well,
You
and
know
then
what I
there's
mean?
like there's bands like I'm not a huge fan of Wasp, but I appreciate that they were like Blackie Lawless was just like kind of like doing his own thing. And so yeah, they have a lot more cred now because they're like, yeah, they're doing hair metal, but it was like kind of
They took on Tipper
black metal.
Gore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They took on Tipper Gore and the Washington Wives, and they testified in front of Congress. They're A-OK in my book.
And Chris Holmes has the most memorable cameo ever in a movie when he's in Decline of Western Civilization, when he's sitting in his pool yelling at his mom drinking out of that bottle of whiskey. It's like the most amazing thing ever. Like I remember saying Wasp is amazing. Wasp is a kind of band too that's like, almost everybody, if you asked people like, oh yeah, they know Motley Crue, but Wasp isn't like as well known. Do you know what I mean? They're like kind of
Yeah, and if you know them, you kind of know them through reputation only, not really their music, but their music's pretty good too. And they were doing things like they're kind of like it sort of strike me like sort of similar to King Diamond maybe, or Merciful Fate, like same like inclinations towards like concept albums and like sort of over the top theatrics and less falsetto, but still.
I saw King Diamond on his last tour where they did like the whole Abigail set and then a Merciful Fate set. And like 11-year-old me was like, well, I can die now. This is the greatest thing. Do you know what I mean? It was like, fuck, this is amazing. I can't sing any of those songs. Like I thank God no one has ever heard my vocals on Abigail. It's the worst. Like who can sing like King Diamond? Nobody can.
Justin Burning. This is the cover of your book, Handheld Hell: The Outbreak of Homemade Horror. Go pick it up if you don't already own it. And are you allowed to talk about your next project, or is it still...
Sure. Yeah. So the next book is tentatively called Panels of the Profane. It takes place in the same time period, basically like the early 80s to mid 90s, but it's focused on comic books. Because around the same time that all this was going on with cinema, like there was sort of a similar movement going on in comic books, especially horror comic books, where that was about when indie publishing started taking off and people were moving away from DC and Marvel, and there was a lot more companies out there. I mean, everyone thinks of Image when they think of like indie publishing, but like there was a lot of others going on out there. There was like comic books like the biggest ones I'm going to focus on are probably like Faust and The Crow is the one everyone knows, and like Cry for Dawn. But there was like a whole series of like more adult aimed comic books that were being independently published around that time. So it focuses on all that stuff from the 80s into the 90s, like basically from the start of the like black and white boom to about when the speculation era ended comic books for a little while, or ended their popularity. So it's going to be a little less like Handheld Hell is more focused on like a handful of movies I love that are in there. Panels of the Profane will be a little bit more like encyclopedic. I'm going to try to like catalog all the different comics that came out at that time, because there was like a whole bunch, and just a lot of them are forgotten to time. There's like maybe like 5 copies floating around. So I'm going to try to do that, and like talking to people like Stephen Bissett and Tim Vigil and David Quinn, and hopefully like Joseph Linsner and people, and Brian Pulido, like people like that were doing a lot of like the horror stuff during those days. And so I've gotten through a huge chunk of the research, starting to do actual writing now. I got to start doing interviews. That's like actually the longest part, but this one's a little different. So Handheld Hell, I was writing like because I just wanted to, and I was moving at my own timeline, and like midway through it, like TerraVision was like, hey, this sounds like a cool idea. Like, we'll publish it if it's good, and you finish it. And so there wasn't like a lot of pressure. This one, I kind of have a publisher already lined up, and they're like, want the sample chapter and like those typical publisher things. So it's a little bit more, going to be a little bit more of a formal process. So I got to get writing on it because I owe a sample chapter soon. But I think it should be, I think a lot of people that grew up around the same time period I did, that were like, we were talking about with all this crossover, comic books were another one that was like part of the whole metal and horror scene too. Like 14-year-old me wanted nothing more than to get an issue of Faust, because you saw the covers with like issue 4, like stood out to me with like him, like standing over like a bunch of like slaughtered bodies with guts and blood and eyeballs hanging out everywhere, and his dick is hanging out. And you're like, okay, this is like something I've never seen before in a comic book. And you're like, okay.
Tim Vigil called me a pussy when I was 12. So he had a table at a con, and the big black mass scene with everybody getting slaughtered. He had a poster of it, and he's like, you should buy this. It's only $20. And I'm like, yeah, I'm 12 and I live with my parents. And he's like, fuck your mom. You should buy it, you fucking pussy. And I was like, man, Tim Vigil's awesome. Like
I mean, conventions are where to go for those things. Yeah. I was 14 when I got my first issue of Faust, and it was because like I bought it at a convention where no one cared to check my.
And also a Reanimator tie-in, because a lot of the same people worked on the movie too. Which is not as good as it should be, but it's what it is.
Yeah, and there will be a horror movie tie-in as well, because there's going to be a chapter all about all the adaptations that came out during that time. I mean, they were just Dark Horse Comics is. I'm going to feature them because they are technically, at the time, they were indie. Now they're a little bit more mainstream. But so there's going to be like all the Aliens, Terminator, Thing from Another World, like all the different adaptations they did. And then like Topps did a whole bunch of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre tie-ins and Friday the 13th and stuff. So there's all that.
It's amazing how many companies there were, like Aircell and like, these like little companies that are not remembered at all. They even had video. I mean, X Mutants even got a video game, and
there's a ton.
Yeah.
And I'll talk. It talks a little bit about the this kind of stuff that laid the foundation, like EC Comics and the stuff Marvel and DC were doing in the 70s. So let's kind of cover like horror comics in general, but then it's the focus on cataloging all this stuff from all those all those indies in the 80s. So
I'm excited to get to the Faust part, because I think more I want more people to. It feels like weird that it's lost, because it was such a big deal to me growing up.
Well, they just released an omnibus. They kickstarted it, which was thankfully very successful, because I'm happy to see that. But yeah, it's still for a little while there was pretty popular, and they made the movie.
Yeah,
which isn't good, but I still like it. But like when that first came out, I had such high expectations of it. Because
it was never going to live up to what I wanted it to be, because it couldn't. Like, how could it?
It could never be as gory or as sexual as the comic. I was like, well, it's speaking of Reanimator ties, and it's produced by Brian Usna, so I was like, okay, well, maybe it'll be okay, but it is okay. But they cut so many corners, like filming it in Spain, and like just I don't know, some really bad CGI. It was at a time when like CGI was not. It's still not.
Yeah.
preferable to practical, but like it was bad CGI, and I don't know.
Well, also it was like the movie tries to figure out an ending for the comic that didn't have an ending yet, and it's like,
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
true.
so it's-
It came
yeah.
out before like issues like 14 and 15, which kind of wrapped up what happened.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so how are we gonna end this? And it doesn't do it well.
I'm one of those geeks that was like EO, everything Tim Vigil put out, Grips. I had all that shit. Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
I mean, he's a god in the indie comic scene.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
I don't want to like put too big of promises out there, but I'm gonna try my damnedest to get him to draw the cover for it.
Oh my god, that would be amazing. He just directed a movie about a year or two ago too, like a directed streaming movie.
Oh really? I think I saw that because I follow him on Instagram, and I think
Yeah.
I've seen that, but like I don't.
It was just so weird because it came up in the credits. Like I wasn't like I got sent it to review, and I was like, Tim Vigil, and I looked up like, yeah, it was him. I was like, wow, kind of like Danzig directing horror movies.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we got to get to the movie.
Sorry,
Let's get to the movie. It's only an hour long, and we're still going to go late.
Yeah, I let it go over a little bit because the feature is only an hour long tonight.
Yeah.
So, but Justin, will you be coming back for the second segment? That is the burning question.
Yeah, I think pun intended. Yeah, I think so. I think I'll try to make it back.
All right.
All right.
Well, we hope you all will come back afterwards for some more chat about hallucinations. We'll be able to say more since everyone will have watched it, and who knows what else will happen. So come back afterwards. In the meantime, get ready to start your copy of the movie. We're going to sign off, and after the movie, we'll be back.